Hey, everybody, welcome to the Blendr Report, where news meets rational thinking. I'm your host, Jonathan Harvey. This is your co-host, Liam DeBoer. And today we have a guest on. His name is Sam Anthony. Sam is the founder and CEO of YourNews.com, a censorship-resistant citizen journalist platform designed to empower everyday people to report stories in their own communities. And he is really moving the needle in where news is going next. So, Sam, thanks for joining us. How you doing today?
I'm good, man. Guys, thanks for having me on, man. This is exciting, really.
Looking forward to chatting with you, brother. So yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've got going on, and then also why you started down this path?
Well, so what I have is a hyper-local news platform called YourNews. The interesting part is when I started this, none of the stuff you see existed, or at least I didn't believe it existed. So we started this. It was me and a couple guys that believed that the newspaper industry was going to eventually collapse because the internet was going to replace it. So we set out to build a platform that would replace the daily newspaper. At the time, I really wasn't thinking radio and TV, which now they're on the way out as well. And then I also did not believe that the media was lying. We're going back, guys, a ways back. Right, the newspapers are still at the height, at the peak. And so, when I realized what we were doing and the significance of it and how important it was when Trump won in 2016, and the media went after him, and all of a sudden you had all this Russian disinformation. It's the stuff Tulsi Gabbard just brought out, where it's all now a big hoax. And so, you have Obama that's orchestrating the whole thing behind the scenes with Comey and Clapper involved with it. So it's that whole deep state thing. When I saw all that, and I saw what was happening, I went, oh my God, they are lying. I mean, they're just manufacturing stuff, right? And then running with it. And, the trick is when anybody takes over, any country takes over another country, the first thing they do is control the press. And we found out now that the way we controlled the press was through USAID, where they were all getting money to be able to promote a narrative, and the government got in bed with our own media companies and was feeding them misinformation under the guise of, look, we're telling you, we're here. This is what's going on. So they were putting out this information to the country. And that's why we're in the mess we're in today. Right. So, ultimately, all the legacy media is not going to survive. Jonathan and I had this conversation. I think I did a demo with you, Jonathan. Am I right?
Right.
Okay. But Liam, you never got to see this. It's pretty impressive. But what I do will actually replace the media, all of them, radio, TV, and print. So whether it's me or somebody else, it's what I do. Okay, I just happen to be the only player in the space.
So how does that work then? What's the platform look like? And then how do you see that taking over the traditional outlets such as like TV and online print, all that kind of stuff?
Well, first of all, the legacy media is not going to survive. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to give you the exact numbers because Megyn Kelly actually brought it up last week. Adweek came out with the numbers. The numbers on cable news was abysmal, but the real numbers were the ones that I think are worth reporting was the age demographic, which is your numbers between 25 and 54 on network television had a total viewership in 3 months of 500,000 people.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay, yeah. So not per month. That's total for 3 months. So here's what that tells you. There's still a demand for news. It's just how people consume it has changed. So when I was growing up, we only had 3 or 4 channels. That's it. Channel 3, Channel 5, Channel 7, and Channel 9, I think. And then they added 11. So, you didn't really have a lot of options. Today, there's like 10 million of you guys. Okay. I mean, it's so the way everything is shifting is to platforms. You're the brand. Look, whether you broadcast on YouTube or Rumble or BitChute or whatever you're on, you have to build your own audience. It's not the platform's job to build your audience. And the marketplace is going to make that decision. And if you're a monetized content creator on YouTube, let's say, once you hit a specific amount of followers, you could be monetized. But you share in the ad revenue. So the way it works is your job is to build your own brand and build your own social media and get people watching your show. But you're going to make more money if you have 10,000 viewers versus if you have 1,000 viewers, right? That's where everything's happening. Now, the only difference between me and them is I do hyper local news. I could drill down to a city. So think of me as the Chicago Tribune or the Miami Herald or the New York Times or the Washington Post on steroids. I do local news in every market in the United States. So here's, Liam, you know, Jonathan saw this, but the way the media business works is very simple. People that have news send what's called a press release to the media. So if you're a nonprofit and you're a church and you're having some, you know, event, a bake sale or something like that, or you're the Cancer Society and you're having a 5K run, somebody from those organizations sends that press release to the media in that market, which is radio, TV, and print. News organizations aggregate the information and then they decide what they're going to air or publish. So what I am is an aggregator because I'm local in every city. I'm an aggregator of all the same content, but we have the ability to print it all because there's no cost and we can organize it by subject and geography, meaning I can make your kid's Little League game appear in one city in the sports section. The high school football game goes to a market. Markets in your country, there's 10 of them. I think they're provinces, but in our country, there's 210 television DMAs. And then you obviously have state news and national news. So, you know, the high school football game would be sports news for a market. And then the Monday Night Football game would be sports news national. So it's all about distribution of information. So what we are is one big massive aggregator. We're taking all the country's information, bringing it under one umbrella and creating one uniform media.
So tell me how you develop your arsenal of journalists.
Well, we on LinkedIn Navigator, if you were to search for a freelance journalist, which I think I showed you, freelance means, you know, they're not working. Most of them are part of the downsizing of the legacy media. So when people go freelance, they're trying to make money. There's almost 500,000 of them on LinkedIn for just the US. 490,000 is the exact number. That's advertising. I want to make money. I can produce content. I need to make money.
Are those all the same people still watching the TV? Like that's
well, they probably work for the TV that now they're off of it. Okay,
so it's almost a 1-to-1.
Yeah, these were all the people that have lost their jobs. Not 100% because some people just did freelance work to do it anyway. But these are going to be the people that used to work for the media industry that now have nowhere to go. In addition, do you have any idea how many students are in journalism school? What blows me away is there's people actually going to journalism school. Okay. But nobody's going to hire these kids. I talked to a girl last week. I said, how long have you been out of school? She said, a year and a half. I go, how many jobs have you got? None.
Wow.
Nobody's hiring. So the future of news, it doesn't matter if it's your podcast or somebody else's, or whether it's audio on Spotify, or if you're a news reporter, you're the brand.
Yeah.
You're just leveraging platforms to distribute and monetize your content. And I am distribution and monetization. Go ahead.
Are you familiar with Neil Postman's book on amusing ourselves to death at all? Is this anything you've ever come across?
No, I never heard that before.
It's a really interesting theory. He, I believe, wrote it back in the 70s when news was first transitioning into a TV medium and how print was starting to go out of fashion. And that's actually one of the points that he made, was what you just touched on, was that once news became visual, it became much more about who was saying the news than it was about the news itself. And it kind of, to your point, it became this branding thing where, you know, when it's a newspaper and you're just reading the actual print, there's not much personality or flair there at all. But then once TV came in, there was a lot more bravado, there was more charisma, all of this kind of stuff. And that was what ended up getting a lot of the audience. Now, he took a very negative view of this. He thought it was kind of turning it into, like, the news into a reality TV series of sorts, like that. It was right. Well, I mean, you're even seeing it too, right? Like, look who the president is right now. It's a reality TV star. So it's the people that, you know, really know how to get in front of a camera and be charismatic that can garner a large audience now. But I think, to your point, we're seeing that transition again now, where before it was print to TV, but the people on TV still had to have a gatekeeper. They had to have a network sign off on them. But now the network is just getting removed, and it's the broadcaster straight to the person. There's no middleman anymore. So yeah, how do you see that shaking out over the next 5 to 10 years, that process?
I see Fox, CNN, ABC, NBC, and MSNBC going out of business. Okay. Every single radio station at least in this country, if not the world, is going to shut down. And the reason is because the younger generation is consuming it right here on this. So everything is on demand. So you do have TV. It's just called a podcast, right? You do have radio or audio. It's just like Spotify, right? It's just an audio version. It's just the delivery mechanism is internet. So where I see this playing out is all the old guard. And by the way, this is not new. You ever heard of something called the telegraph? Have you ever sent one? No. Okay, well, it's because somebody created this, and this is what replaced that form of communication. It's the same thing with the horse and buggy. You know what they are, but you never were on one, okay, unless it was at some, farm or something like that. It's replaced by the automobile. So there's always a product that replaces something else. To your point, Liam, is all the podcasters that are out there. The cream is going to rise to the top. I mean, it leveled the playing field because somebody like both of you guys never worked for CNN or ABC or NBC or Fox, right? Okay, so you have no broadcast experience whatsoever, but the technology today gives you the ability to be broadcasters. What my technology does is it allows independent people that have never been in the news business to become news reporters. Okay, so you don't have to be in the news business. I could take somebody that is, very popular in the community, that goes to all the city council meetings or school board meetings. Doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, that just knows everybody in town and is, call it a busybody, whatever you want. And they show up at the city council meeting and they come back and they report on it and they send it out to the community. That's your next news reporter. It's not that hard, and not for nothing, but mainstream media didn't set the bar very high. Okay. All you got to do is tell the truth and you already won. So, but to your point, it's anybody has that flair that could draw an audience. And I'll give you a perfect example. I have a girl that works for me, and about 10 or 11 months ago, I hired her. And we had no social media presence on Instagram. And she says, I'm going to start an Instagram podcast and I'm going to report news from YourNews and build an audience. So her audience was literally zero. Do you know she has 330,000 followers less than a year?
Dang, wow. Good for her.
Okay, now here's I'm going to tell you why. So far, Megyn Kelly that team has reached out to her to bring her on. I've had 2 people text me because they found out I knew her to ask her to come on their shows. She became popular. She's the brand. Yep. That girl's going to have over 1 million followers in the next year. Because the bigger you get, it just speeds up the process, right?
Absolutely.
So people sharing stuff. Well, now you have 300,000 people sharing stuff.
Yeah.
So
there's interesting here because on the other side, and this is one of those things where this is obviously technological advancement. I don't think there's any one person with a plan. It's kind of like saying the agricultural revolution was a plan. It's just kind of technological progress, that this space that we're going into where, yes, the middleman is getting taken out and people are just going direct to consumer on that front. But I've heard critiques about this kind of move as to how, all right, you've got more and more people, so then there's maybe less quality there. But I think the attention does end up finding it to the few that are, say, doing a really good job, because it is, so anybody can pick up their phone now and report on whatever they feel like. And so, and a lot of that is probably low quality. But what I actually think what is interesting about this as well is it almost adds another layer of trust in the sense where, let's say CNN or Fox News or CBC or any of these institutions have a false story or they get caught in a scandal or some sorts, they can off one person. They can say, well, we fired the one person whose fault that was, and we're all good now. No need to worry. We've got this sorted. Whereas when you're solo, when the trust is in you as a person, you can't just do that. Like you're going to get swept under the rug and forgotten about. People are just going to say, nope, you've lost your trust. There's nothing I can do as an individual to say, pass the buck to somebody else. So do you see this, I guess, this transition adding more trust into news or less?
I think it's at the end of the day, it's going to add more trust. I mean, simply because who are you going to trust more, the guy that was there or the person that wasn't there that's reporting it from 3,000 miles away? Okay, so the people that we have are actually boots on the ground.
Right.
In the last 7 months, I picked up 865 news reporters. Let me say it again, 865 news reporters. Okay,
That's wild.
So, and that's just a pittance. So as we expand and grow, just like YouTube, how many YouTube channels have you went to where you only saw that their last posting was like 2 or 3 years ago, right? If you don't know why, it's because they weren't making any money. The cream rises to the top. So you always have the 80-20 rule. It doesn't matter if it's on YouTube or if it's on Rumble or anywhere. I'm a platform. What you're going to have is I'm probably going to pick up 1 million people. Remember, there's 20,000 cities. If I only had 5 people a city, it's 100,000. Okay, and son, you know as well as I do, New York's probably going to need 800 to 1,000. I mean, just the city. Well, you know how many in Maricopa County? There's probably, I don't even know how many there would be, but I asked somebody the other day, and they told me that it's a massive number. High schools. You know how many high school sports are going on? Doesn't matter if it's basketball, volleyball, football, baseball, golf. Okay, you could have independent coverage in every single school. And if there's 100 schools, I mean, there's just 100 people. There's probably 5 sports going on times 100. There's 500 people that just do sports. It's crazy. So I could have 1 million, but at the end of the day, it's still going to work out to the 80-20 rule.
Yeah, no, I see it very much the same way. I think that rule applies pretty well across, seems like everything. It's so interesting.
Everything, if it does.
So tell me a little bit about your expansion plan. So you've conquered sort of the U.S., or you're conquering the U.S., but you said you're going to move into Canada. So just kind of run me down that path.
Yeah, Canada's, you guys have a different zip code table than us. So it's, when I opened up Puerto Rico, it was easy because it was just like U.S. zip code. So you just plugged it in and bam, the news was there. What I don't want, I could open up Canada as independent with an independent URL, but I want to feed the national news from the U.S. there because a lot of it is relevant, right? Okay, so we're going to have to change the zip code tables to configure them so that it all pulls. So when you log in, it'll know you live in Ontario or wherever, whatever city you live in. And then we set up in the dashboard, we set up the provinces. So we can run a story to the country itself, to a specific city, a county, a market, which in your case would be a province, or we call it state, but it's really national for you guys, would be front page news. We could do the whole country. So it's going to take some tech to put it together.
Right.
But once it's done, it's done. Now, other countries, we're going to have to set up independently because in Germany, the national news of the United States is irrelevant. But I know for a fact, you guys watch U.S. sports, you guys watch hockey, baseball, basketball. So all that stuff could flow in there.
Right. So what you're going to do is continue working your way through the U.S., jump into Canada, build up the tech for that, and then just sort of spread through, I imagine, Europe. That would kind of be your next move?
Well, probably, so there's 180 countries we've identified, or 150 countries we've identified. Canada is going to be certainly the easiest. But we're going to just focus on those two for a while we expand and, build this out, because I'm doing a capital raise and I'm doing one right now. And once that's completed, I'm going to do another one after that. The one after that is going to be for global expansion.
Nice.
At the end of the day, guys, the same thing happening to the media here is happening in Argentina and Canada, and it's all the same. Mm-hmm. So the future of news is going to be an online platform. It's going to be a hyper local news, and I'm talking local news. So it'll be a hyper local news platform that allows the public to interact, to share in the narrative locally. It'll have a monetization model where news reporters could write a story, share it on social media, and earn money off the article from their consumption. Just like on YouTube, a self-service ad platform where Joe's Pizza could buy an ad and target it to one zip code and everywhere in between, right? That's where all this is headed. By the way, on a global scale on LinkedIn, there's over 2 million people that call themselves freelance journalists.
Right. So you've got a lot to pick from.
God. The market is ripe. I mean, the timing is perfect for this. So now it's just a matter of scaling it out.
Tell me a little bit about the monetization aspect. So obviously we're creators, and a lot of guys and a lot of girls in this space create a ton of content, have hundreds of thousands of followers, don't really get a lot of traction. In Canada, it's difficult because there's actually, you can't actually share in the ad revenue on platforms. So outside YouTube and X in Canada, so Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Spotify, You get $0 in Canada, zero. So it's total bullshit. It's one of the reasons we're kind of moving south. So it can be difficult for a creator. So can you tell me a little bit about just how the monetization works and whether, could a top shelf journalist actually make a living using your platform?
Yeah. First of all, that's a good question. So there's some things we're doing to enhance the revenues that can be generated. One is it's been completed. Now they're doing testing on it. So, it's a follow button where you could have an account with us. And then, so you share, let's say you post a video or a story or whatever you write, and you share that out on your social media page and say, guys, read my stuff here. So they click the link to come here. And when that article opens, there's ads around the story and you get a percentage of the ad revenue, but they could also follow you. So over time, just think of YouTube. Somebody does a search on YouTube and you're on YouTube. Well, and they got 1 billion people a day on that site, right? So if somebody does a search, you guys could come up from a lot of different people that you don't even know. They might not even be from this country, and they listen to you and they like you and they follow you, right? That's how it works. So I could have somebody post a story from Miami about, a bank robbery and has nothing to do with you guys. And then they could go over to another specific category where your stuff is sitting. They could listen to it and go, wow, we want to follow these guys. I like these guys. The next thing you know, you got a new follower. So over time, you may have 10, 20, 30,000 followers over time that are following you. And the moment you submit something, it'll immediately alert 10 or 20,000 people. So that's how the monetization is going to work. We're in building phase. So this is not a get rich quick scheme. Remember YouTube years ago, there was no monetization, and then they brought monetization in. So the first step is you need to build your audience. The real money for everyone is not in the national ads like you would think. It's in the local ads. Okay. Because the local ads, everything, when you sell ads online, you have, people want to know what your audience reach is, and then they only pay based on results, and results could be how many times their ad appears. So you could either sell through click-throughs, which is what Google does, or you could sell impressions, which is what most newspapers do, right? No online platforms. So we sell impressions because we have display ads. National ad rates are a penny, which means if you want, 1 million impressions, it's like 10 grand. But hyper local ones are 10 cents or more.
Wow.
So our ads are on a best bid basis. So if Joe's Pizza wants to buy an ad to target one zip code in Chicago, he's going to trump the national guy. So the real money is in the local. And I'm going to tell you how this works. If you could put 10 ads around a story and they're all national ads at a penny, when the page gets clicked, you make a dime.
Yep.
But if they're all local ads, you make $1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I see that.
So if I'm paying you 20%, one's 2 cents, one's 20 cents. It adds up much quicker. So the real money's in the local, but nobody else could address that market. And that's where we come in. So we have a platform that allows the little guys to be able to beat the big guys out.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, that's fantastic. When you break that down is, you could literally just pay for 2 or 3 zip codes, which is walking distance within your pizza store. The ads cost you $500, let's say, but it's hyper localized. You're getting all the right people. You beat out the big guy that won't pay the same amount of money for those few zip codes. But then that also translates not only to your pocket, but to the creator. Yeah, love that platform idea. I think that's going to do very, very well for you once it's really not up and running, but where it needs to be, let's say, and there's enough traction there. I just kind of wanted to shift gears. So I was thinking about something while we were chatting there. Just before we jumped on the podcast, we were talking about how the number one tool for most governments is control of the media. And when you see the United States or other countries move into other nations, they'll even try to control their media just to control the narrative. I often say that media is their most potent weapon. I kind of put nuclear aside and go, if they control the media, they control the population. Now, this is the government's most potent and powerful tool, and the media is controlled by very few people that are very powerful. What do you think you're going to run into? Who do you think you're going to run into? What kind of regulatory issues do you think you're going to run into as you try to expand this platform in the United States and around the world?
Probably nothing in the United States. Canada is going to give me a problem. There's probably going to be some other countries that give me problems too. We'll deal with those as we get to them. This is why my focus right now is going to be the United States and Canada, simply because you guys are neighbors to us, right? It's not that difficult. But once we get that whole piece built out and we raise the capital for global expansion, I'll bring in people that are much smarter than me to be able to do it. I'm not stepping down from CEO because nobody's doing anything without me knowing it. But it's, we'll go into countries, we'll figure out what the laws are, and we'll start working our way into them. I'm kind of surprised you said to me, so if you live in Canada, you can't be monetized. How do they stop it? How do you stop it?
So I could advertise, like, let's say this company, Travis Matthew, they wanted me to promote their hats. I could promote their hats on my channel because I'd get paid offline. But when it comes to actual ad revenue, so all the traffic we generate, and it is in tens of millions between the two of us on our platform, on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, there's no mechanism within Facebook to pay us. So they just say, we don't have an ad share deal with your country. You don't get paid for your traffic. We don't care. That's it.
And I think a lot of that right now is coming from the fact that our government is very hostile to these platforms. So I don't even think it's necessarily that there is, say, something our government is giving to these platforms as far as an order goes or regulation that says you can't pay creators. But even, for instance, about, what was it, a year and a half ago when the News Act came around, and what this did was it forced the platforms, the social media platforms, to share in, they had to pay into a media fund part of the revenue that they were getting off of news content. So let's say CBC had an article, that article went up on X, and that X post was getting traction. The Canadian government said, well, you're monetizing our country's news content, so you need to pay into this media fund that then we are going to redistribute to media outlets of our choosing in Canada. Well, then you saw the way that Meta reacted to this, Instagram and Facebook. They just said, fine, we just won't show news on our platforms at all. So actually, if you go to look for our original page, which was called Blendr News on Instagram in Canada, you would still be able to see it. But any Canadians would just it's blocked out. You can't see any of our past posts, and it says people in Canada can't see this content. So I think it's mostly just because, say, for instance, in the revenue sharing aspect, I think a lot of these companies and social media companies look at Canada as just like, we're not really even worried about expanding there or building a relationship with them because they're very hostile towards us in that sense.
What about if somebody wants to buy advertising from you? Could you accept the money?
Mm-hmm. You could take, so you could take, like, if these guys wanted to sell their hats we could promote their hats. So you can still do direct advertising. They can't stop you from doing that. But the problem is, you look at the ad share revenue. Think about, like, for example, we get about 25 million views a month. So if that were all on YouTube, they pay between $4,000 and $18,000 per million views. So just say 4,000, no big deal. So you do that math and you kind of go, well, if it was all on YouTube, you guys would have made $100,000. That's pretty good money. If it were on X, they pay very, very little on X. X is like pennies by comparison. It's like $50 per million. It's almost nothing. So those are the only two platforms we can make money on. Now, YouTube's difficult because YouTube censors our type of news content. YouTube is very, very left-wing, and they're very in line with the government. So we get censored on YouTube more than any other platform, I would suggest. But the bulk of our traffic is on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. So on those platforms, it's between like $500 to $1,000 per million views. So for 20 million of our views every month, instead of us making between 10 and 20 grand on those views, we're getting $0. So when you look at it from like just a feasibility study on whether or not this business makes sense in Canada, it doesn't. As soon as we move south of the border, it's automatically a super huge net positive just to make that move. So that's kind of how that shakes out for us, unfortunately. You can do direct ads, but then the other thing too is, if you think about the news space, I'm sure you know this, a lot of companies kind of avoid the news in terms of promoting and advertising unless it is within the mainstream narrative, which we are obviously not, because they don't want their company to be tied into counter narrative or anything that can be framed as right-wing, extremist, all that other bullshit they like to throw at us. So companies quite often, unless they align with our values, are sort of afraid to advertise with us anyway.
So so what I'm hearing is if you rack up money on any platform, it doesn't matter. They can't send it to you.
Yeah, they just don't even let it rack up. They just say it's non-existent. We don't track yeah, essentially.
So what if we called it ad revenue? We bought advertising. Would that be okay? So if you racked up $5,000 on my platform and I sent you $5,000 that I'm buying advertising from you, could I do that?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So there is a way around it. I mean, they'll bitch and moan about it, but there is a way around it.
Well, you could pay us. You could pay us to do advertising for you, yes. But the thing is, there's two kinds of advertising. There's two kinds of ad revenue, really. One of them is direct advertising, where I promote your company. And then the other one is where I share in ad revenue just for having traffic, because a company like YouTube promotes on my videos. So we're both it is sort of direct advertising in both ways, except one of them is managed by the platform. One of them is managed by us, the individuals. So they can't stop the individuals from advertising. But when they do use our videos to make money on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, they don't pay us for it. They just keep all the money. So we can't really break through that. We have no choice. We just continue to create content and kind of get roped.
But if you racked up money on a platform like mine and I said, wear these YourNews hats, I'll give you $5,000.
Yeah.
That's okay.
100%. Yeah. There's nothing about you. You could still do that. If you have your own platform and you wanted to participate in giving us ad share revenue like YouTube does, and YouTube pays people in Canada, you could do that. It's just all the other platforms refuse to participate because, well, they can keep their own money. And because, like Liam said, there's a hostile relationship with our government. So there's no real incentive for them to do anything good for the people of Canada.
Understood. Okay. So there's a will, there's a way. So it could be done.
And I also think too, the factor of just the market size is probably an aspect as well. If you think about how Canada is 10% of the population of America, roughly. And so part of it, I would imagine, is that also is just kind of like, Canada isn't a big deal for us. We're not really, we've got 40 million users there. That's a relatively small country market size. So even if they could do these things, it's like, okay, if we've got a list of 10 to 20 countries that we're looking at rolling out this ad sharing revenue with creators on, I would imagine that Canada's low on that list because they would be targeting the countries that have higher market caps, essentially.
I actually think this could be a positive for you, though. I'm thinking, I'm just kind of working through this out loud, but if we don't pay our creators in Canada because you can't benefit from ad share revenue, but you can provide creators in Canada with ad share revenue, then you got a leg up on everybody. So when you come in here, the incentive for journalists in Canada to jump on board with you to make money is going to be significantly higher than it is in the United States. So this is actually a really good net positive for you.
Yeah, no. Okay. So, but isn't it your own government that's stopping it? They don't want you to accept it?
No, no.
Oh, then you can do rev share. Okay, so I got a rev share, so you're good to go. I thought you were saying that the government stops you.
No. The government doesn't stop. I mean, the government does a lot to censor, and the government beefs with all the social platforms. So the social platforms essentially don't offer ad share programs in Canada. So it's a combination. Basically, they're both just being terrible to us. That's what's happening.
So, by the way, the comment that you made about the businesses not wanting to align with conservative content that's not mainstream, that really is the small little pittance of the advertisers. It really is. You know how many? First of all, in order to own a business, for the most part, you got to be a conservative, right? I mean, remember this: liberals don't own businesses; they burn them down.
Correct.
So you have to be a conservative. The marketplace for me, we'll exclude Canada because I don't know what the numbers are, but there's something like 20,000 little storefront businesses all around the United States. 20 million of them. And then there's 300 million e-commerce sites. Right. So that doesn't include General Electric and, AT&T, all these massive companies, which could be woke, which I really don't want anyway.
Yeah.
So 99% of the market is actually aligned with us.
Yeah, so here's what's interesting. I agree with you in the United States, but not in Canada, and here's why. In Canada, the default vote is Liberal. That's how the average Canadian votes. They just go, well, I don't really, you have your apathetic, you have your misled, you have a lot of other people involved in a lot of ways, but primarily Canadians will default to Liberal. If you look historically, it's just factual that we usually vote for a Liberal government. So, I mean, Justin Trudeau burned this country to the fucking ground. And everybody that was a Liberal was going, oh my God, what have we done? We voted this guy in. He's an absolute nutbag. Then as soon as he stepped aside and Mark Carney jumped in, who was basically the puppeteer behind him the whole time, who was responsible for a lot of these things and is super corrupt and has so many conflicts of interest. everybody in Canada goes, yay, I can vote Liberal again. I can go to my default vote. Why I'm saying this is because the average Canadian, the default vote is Liberal, there's actually a much stronger keel towards Liberal ideology when it comes to advertising and marketing. So we don't really there's almost no space in Canada. There's no strong conservative outlet at all. There's no real right-wing party. There's the PPC, but they get laughed off the stage, unfortunately, because of how narrow our Overton window is. So a lot of the advertisers in Canada that are in that space, there's nowhere for them to go. They don't promote. They don't market. It's such a weird thing. I mean, you can tell me if you feel otherwise, but that's been my experience.
No, I think that's very, very similar. And especially even just too, that there isn't this, it's funny. If you think about the difference between America and how there's kind of, left versus right, we've got far left and center left. It's like that's our political paradigm here. So it is tough even on the especially on the advertiser front that if you're even right of it's funny, like I don't even consider myself historically conservative at all. That's never really where I was, but you look at the modern landscape with me, you place me within this Overton window of Canada, then I definitely am. And so it's funny because you don't get that with, at least there is kind of this counterculture in America. There is this balancing on the side where that's just not really here.
Well, in our case, it's really the platform is not conservative. Okay. I mean, it's the market that makes that decision. So we don't suppress, liberal opinions or conservative opinions. In my personal opinion, you don't have a democracy if you don't have a free press. So I think really everybody needs to be heard. So the reality is the Key West version of our site is going to look completely different than the, middle Missouri. All right. And so in Canada, you may find that a lot of Canadians come on board and are putting out a very strong liberal content, which I'm not going to stop. I mean, why would you bother? Because so then what happens is you have those local advertisers that are going to log in and buy ads around that content, right? It's the marketplace makes the decision. It's not you guys or me, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I think that's the right approach. I think you have the benefit of crowdsourcing. So you just sort of let the majority rule in a sense, and then you win no matter what, which I think is great. Like that's a very, very wise decision. So
you hit it on the head. Yeah.
So I actually was just thinking about this then now. How do you, so you've got a news platform, YourNews. So when people are on there and they're sort of browsing the news, is it just sort of a mishmash of everybody's thoughts and ideas that are left and right and all these other things? Or how do you sort of create cohesion? Or is that more so based on the individuals you follow?
Well, first of all, it's categories. Second of all, it's all news content. So, and anything that's opinion, which I would think would be the mishmash, would be in opinions.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the news reporting, I don't care if you have an opinion about a specific team winning. It doesn't go in opinions. It's going to be a sports story, right? If you're writing a story and you think that, the Patriots are going to beat the Bengals and you're reporting on it, nobody cares. When you're dealing with politics, you really want to keep your opinion out of it, because the moment you put an opinion in, you're pissing people off. So it goes to opinions. So it's really who, what, when, where, why. So the difference, right? That's a news story. It's here's what happened. Here's who, here's what, here's when, and here's why. And basically, if you don't like it, put a gun in your mouth and pull the trigger. I don't know what to tell you.
Objective facts for objective facts. Okay.
That's it. There's nothing more to report. Now adding to your 2 cents all of a sudden makes it an opinion. Let somebody else form their own conclusion.
Right. Okay. So the foundation of the content that you're creating for the most part is really just about reporting actual news. So sort of going back to the grassroots, what news was. Here's the information. The Patriots won 31-28. Here's the story. The kicker nailed it in the last few seconds of the game. Okay, cool. So it's really more about facts. Or hey, I'm on the ground here in Israel. This is what's going on. And then when you see opinion, you just sort of filter that out or put it in a different category, correct? Is that how
they call it opinion?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all it is. So, we have all kinds of content. We have people that do restaurant reviews, theater critics, movie reviews. It's very broad in scope. So this is not, matter of fact, politics is about 1% of what we do.
Interesting. That's it, eh? That's wild because that's like such a, maybe we just live in a bit of a silo, but I feel like politics is like the prevailing narrative rather over everything these days. You know what I mean?
Jonathan, you know what's big on our site? Formula One auto race.
Awesome.
Okay. I have news reporters that just report Formula One.
That's dope.
I have people that just do entertainment news. So,
I love that.
So this is where I'm saying is we get this massive, when somebody posts a story, like I have a guy in Dallas that'll do movie reviews. Well, he has a following on social media and they're all people that like his stuff, whether it's one person or 100,000, it doesn't matter. When he shares his stuff, those people are coming to me. Now, the Formula One guys have their own audience. They do a podcast like you guys, and then they also do written news. We're talking 3 stories a day. I'm like, how the hell is this much content coming out of auto racing? But apparently it is. So these guys promote their content on social media and bring their audience to me. But that same person could click entertainment and go, oh, look at this movie. What does this guy say about it? Right? I want to watch this. Because I know, because I do it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, oh, look at this. I want to watch that movie. What does he say about this? And he gives it ratings and stuff. It's actually kind of cool. So what I'm doing is really no different than any daily newspaper. It's just the scale, like you said, crowdsourcing, because I could have 1 million news reporters and we could organize it all. Because I have home and garden. I have people that do faith-based stuff. I have people that do travel-related stuff. I said the home and garden piece, but we even get home and garden type stuff. So it's really, you ever go through a newspaper and pull out the home and garden section? Right, they have them at least in the Sunday paper.
They used it when they used the newspaper. Yeah,
So the beauty is the only people that are reading that category are the people that are interested in that category.
Yeah, you know what I appreciate about the platform, and hearing you say that is like you're really just providing the nuts and bolts of all the information that's happening around the world in one place for people, and you're giving people an opportunity to monetize their efforts and bringing it to you, and so you survive. I would thrive, actually, is a better word to use, just based on the world turning. It doesn't really matter what's left, what's right. It doesn't really matter what's going on, just because there's so much minutia, there's so much niche information to report on in every little community, and that's how you actually do the best. So, yeah, I mean, I think you're going to have wild success with this thing, man. Good for you. I love that.
Well, it's really interesting, actually, to hear about your format and template for this, because that does add an extra element where when people are just going straight to consumer and it's just individual writers and all of this, I think that lends itself a lot more to people just writing about what they're passionate about, right? What you're talking about there, where, all right, I just want to write about a movie and I just want to write about how good the movie was. But when you get these large institutions, then all of a sudden that journalist is getting pressured by their editor, and the overall, also even just the relationships that those companies have with other companies, right? Oh, the Globe and Mail, like, and this is just, I'm just making this up. This isn't an actual thing I know, but let's just say the Globe and Mail has a partnership with Cineplex Theaters, and then you've got all of a sudden Cineplex Theaters is giving their input on how they want the news stories about new movies to come out, or this. And then even too, when you see these large institutions, over the last 10 years, we've 100% seen it where everything does become politicized. They are writing into their sports stories the politics. It is about, oh, this person
taking the knee, LGBTQ, wear the
pride jersey in practice or whatever, and so they try to politicize it because it can become a weapon in that sense. But when it's just hundreds of thousands of people writing about what they're interested in, that starts to kind of get taken out of the process of that.
Yeah, like the micro kills the macro. This is awesome. Yeah.
Well, so to your point, because I talk to a lot of journalists and they tell me the war stories they had to go through. But for the people just getting out of school, they're looking for a job. There's not many of them. I mean, there's almost none. So let's say your big thing is fashion. We have a fashion section. I don't ever go to it, but we do have one. And so let's say you love to write about fashion, but the only job you could get is business news. Well, so I had talked to her. She goes, I don't even know anything about business, but I'm forced to write about it, right? So they can't even do what they want to do.
Right.
With our platform, you pick whatever the hell you want, and you could jump across the board. One day you could write about the high school football game, and the next day you could write about, I think these shoes go with this dress, or this purse matches these earrings, whatever. I mean, that goes in fashion. So it's broad, but let me give you some of the stuff that, to your point, because this is what you brought up about the legacy media and control. Right. So back in the 80s, there was over 500 independent news outlets. If you go back further, there was even more, but they all got bought up. So currently we have 6 institutions that control the legacy media. Much easier to control 6 institutions than it is to control 1,000. Right. So it's easy to control these 6. Well, when you work for a newspaper, I had a woman tell me that she was out of, I think, Tampa. And she said that she's been a journalist for 20 years, investigative journalists. If you know anything about investigative journalists, they work on stories sometimes years.
Yeah.
Okay. And trying to find information out. And so once they decide their story's done, they dot every I and cross every T. They take it to the newspaper and say, okay, I finished this story. And let's say it's something big. Jeffrey Epstein is a perfect example. Okay. And how that story was squashed. But they take it. What you don't know is at a newspaper, there's a content review board. Nobody ever told me about them. I'm like, a what? Well, it goes before them. And it could be somebody's, let's say you had a story and it's scandalous, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be somebody's brother, could be a big advertiser, could be, somebody's relative. They could nix it. And it gets worse. Alex Newman told me, he's the editor of the New American. He's part of our company. Alex told me, the worst part is they could take the story, completely rewrite it, so it doesn't even say what their truth is, and you can't say a word about it because you work for them. You're on their payroll. So what we live in today is a world that is completely centralized news. That's what you live in right now. That's why you saw the 50s TV saying the same thing from Sinclair Broadcasting, threat to our democracy. Remember, right? From Sinclair. Well. All those businesses are going out of business. 100% chance. Mark my words. If you could short those stocks, you should have done it 10 years ago, but short them. What we do is completely decentralize the news business and we democratize it. There's nobody that's going to stop the story but the content creator. So as the news reporter, you're not only the investigative journalist, but you're the freaking review board. How could I possibly know what happened in that city at that city council meeting? Or, how do I know that the mayor of Omaha, Nebraska isn't stealing stuff? But they're the ones that take credit for their own content. And if they're lying, they're the ones that are responsible for it. We're just the platform. I'm Facebook. So we're covered under Section 230.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah. So that's why before you click submit, it says you agree to the terms. The terms are you don't hold us liable. We have no idea if you're telling the truth or not.
Yep.
Then there's the disclaimer under every article. We have no idea if this person's telling the truth or not. Read at your own peril, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whatever it is. So they're responsible for their own content, and that's it. So it puts the power of the press in their hands. So now the reason I'm telling you this is because this is going to get interesting. Because all these politicians that have relationships with the media, and I'm not even talking on a national level, talking on a local level, all that stuff matters nothing. When that news reporter has that story and has documentations that this person committed a crime and here's the actual document that shows it, they're screwed. Now you understand how big this is? Because now there's nowhere to hide. If you, it's like that guy, that CEO that got caught with his girl. Okay.
What a fucking idiot.
I mean, come on. There's 20,000 people there. I've been at so many hockey games and I've never had Kiss Cam come on me, right?
Oh, my God.
And so what are the odds? But you know what? Busted.
1 in 20,000, but still, you get what you get, buddy.
20,000. I mean, I have never been on that TV screen before.
Oh, man, that was wild. No, I love what you're doing. I think decentralization is really the way. Anytime you can decentralize power, information, money, the whole thing, I'm 100% on board. That's where the people need to go. That's how we sort of reclaim democracy in a big way and sort of take power away from people that have got far too much of it that honestly shouldn't have this control over us whatsoever. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out for you. I think you and I will obviously stay in touch. And I'll be really interested to just see how this works for you when you bridge into Canada and as you continue to scale, just kind of the speed bumps, the things you run into, because I think you're going to meet some inertia because, like you said, if there's nowhere for people to hide anymore, they're going to try to take away your toy in a sense, right? They're going to go, wait a minute, you're going to do what? And then if they realize, as you get bigger and bigger and bigger in their power, it's a power vacuum at the top. When you're talking about senators and governors and maybe people even above them and, leaders of other governments, and they're going to be on the chopping block because your news platform allows it. You'll see a little bit of pushback. I mean, same thing Facebook does.
Of course, but the key is keep the institutional money out of it.
Yes, agreed.
And so that, I mean, the reason we're in the mess today is because you have 6 institutions controlling the mainstream media. My background is capital raising. I've done it my whole life. I've never done anything else but that. And so, Jonathan, I showed you we're doing an equity crowdfund, right? So we're raising capital. To me, if you're really going to be a news organization that's by the people, for the people, well, shouldn't the people own the product and not the institutional players? So I've completely bypassed them. So I'm doing,
love it.
Yeah, I'm doing the first round, which is a low valuation, followed up by a second round, which I'll do after this one at a much higher valuation, but a small round. So I'm really not selling a lot of the company, and we're able to expand and grow with a very low overhead, which is beautiful. And, once I finish this round, I got 2 years of runway without, if I don't raise a nickel. And in 2 years, I figure I'll pick up around 40 or 50,000 news reporters. That's what a big budget. I mean, that's like marketing, instead of spending, $500 or $600 or $700 a month, you're talking 15 or 20,000 a month. I mean, you're talking about bringing in literally thousands of people a month. So by the time this gets to 10,000, we'll be a force. But remember, there's 20,000 cities. You don't even have one a city. Once you get to, 40 or 50,000, you're an absolute behemoth.
Yeah, I what I call it is an hourglass model. It's like the Uber model, or Airbnb, where you've got a large swath of people creating content for you, in this case, on the one end, and then you've got a very narrow infrastructure, which is your business, and then on the other end, which is the hourglass side, or the other end of the hourglass rather, you have all the people consuming the content. And those business models that can stay super lean in the middle here, but have a very wide on each end, they thrive.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's not like we need proof of concept. I mean, we're already in growth mode. We were already selling ad revenue. We were already bringing on content creators. I mean, how do you bring on 865 people in a relatively short period of time? I mean, I have more news reporters than most mainstream media outlets. I mean, the Palm Beach Post here in my market doesn't even have but 20 news reporters. 20. Okay. And I far exceed them. So this is, because the marketplace is so ripe and nobody has anywhere to go, it's either me or you got to pick a new field. This is where everything is headed.
Yeah. Love that. Okay. So going to wrap up for today, but I'd like you to, so where can people go right now to consume and see the news? Then the other question I have is, how quickly will you be in Canada? And then also finally, how can people join the platform if they want to be contributors?
So if you want to go to our site, it's YourNews.com. We will geolocate you. Some people block it. There's a green button at the top that says, change your location. You put in your zip code. It'll take you to your city. So, you'll be located with local news there if we have any. They can become citizen journalists. So if somebody's interested in becoming a citizen journalist, if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see something that says become a citizen journalist. You click that, scroll down. There's a couple videos, and then you could short ones, and then you can fill out an application. When we receive that, we look at it. So put your social media in there because we want to see who you are. And then once we activate you, you'll get instructions on how to leverage it. Canada, I'm expecting to open up here right after the follow button's done. We're going to be working on that piece. And then from the investment side, there's at the bottom of the page as well on Your News, there's something that says invest. I could send you guys the link if you want to put it below.
Yeah, please.
I don't know if Allison sent it to you.
Love that. Liam?
Right on. No, that was great. Glad we got chatting today. Hear a little bit more about the platform, what you're working on, and also give
me, once that thing is built, I'm guessing it'll probably take a month to have Canada up and running. I got to spend some money to do it, but I want to do it. And I think there's a marketplace over there for it. And I think you let the market decide which way it's going to go. So that's going to happen. I mean, look, it opens me up to 40 million more people.
Yes.
Right? I have no downside to do it.
No,
Sure.
totally agreed. Yeah, 100%.
Well, let us know when that's in motion, and we'll get chatting again, and we can kind of go through it then.
Okay, guys. See ya.
Till next time. Bye, everybody.